Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood from the Raymond Wood podcast. We're back again with another amazing podcast episode, and we've got with us Stuart Briggs today from Acceleration Australia. I've known Stuart for probably 17 or 18 years. I think I met him the first year I actually moved out to Australia, and we're going to introduce you to someone who's very inspirational. He works in the sporting field across many sports, and some of the stuff that he does in the sporting world's phenomenal, and some of the gains that he gets. So hopefully for our listeners over the next 45 to 50 minutes, you're going to come away a lot wiser, and I guarantee you're going to want to reach out for your son or daughter to Acceleration Australia, because Acceleration Australia is someone I've used for my daughters for many, many years, and I love the work they do. Stuart, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, thanks, Ray. I appreciate you bringing me in.
Lovely to have you in. Now, I've wanted to get you in for a while, and believe it or not, before we actually caught up in the dog park a couple of months ago and we retouched base again, I was going through my phone trying to find your details to see if I could get you on the podcast, and we bumped into each other with our dogs in the dog park, and I think it was fate. It was meant to be.
It must have been, mate. That was a fantastic way to re-engage. It was great to see you. Yeah.
So before we start and we talk about your background and how you started your career and how you started getting involved in sports, just for our listeners, can you just explain Acceleration Australia, what it is, who you serve, and what the aim and the purpose of Acceleration Australia is?
Yeah, we'll go into the history of Acceleration Australia, but our mission is to help athletes move faster, get stronger, jump higher for sporting competition. And that mission has been just a laser light where we're exactly where we're going with the company, and we've done nothing since the year 2000. So, look, I'll go back into the history and everything in the future in a little bit, but in terms of Acceleration Australia, that's our focus. But because that's our focus, all of our staff, there's 20 staff or whatever, that's all they want to do is train athletes. That's all Acceleration does, is focus on that. So it's a very pointed way of thinking, but what it does, it means that we're true specialists in that area. So,
yeah, I think it's critical for most sports, all sports, like to be able to move quickly, and especially it's more paramount for football, soccer. One of the things that we do 99% of the time is we don't have the ball and we're moving around without the ball. So if you can move half a second quicker over 20 metres, that's a game changer.
Massive. It is huge. Like 0.1 of a second is around about, depending on the pace of the person, is around about, it can be up to about 80 centimetres difference over 20 metres. 80 centimetres is a long way. Yeah. So it's about 0.12 of a second difference in your 20 metre will increase your speed by a metre. A metre over someone else is remarkable. It's the difference between having the ball and not having the ball. So
there was a game of football on this morning. It was Champions League semi-final. Yeah. Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid. Bayern Munich and Real Madrid drew 2-2 in Germany a few weeks ago. They went into the game at Real Madrid. Bayern Munich were winning 1-0 with 10 minutes to go. Oh. Carlo Ancelotti then makes a few substitutions, and one of the players he brings on, Joselu. Exactly that. Half a metre ahead of two players, 2 touches in 6 minutes, and the game's over 2-1. Real Madrid are going to London to play in the biggest game of football to probably be crowned champions for the 15th time in European history, which is phenomenal. And that just shows you those little small yards, the strategic planning of a substitute with 10, 15 minutes to go can be the difference in winning the biggest prize in world football, in my eyes, the Champions League final. Otherwise, like Bayern Munich are now on a flight back to Germany going home with nothing to celebrate for the season.
Pace is amazing. I've watched my son play a lot of FIFA over the years, and one of his favourite things to do is get players with pace.
With pace.
Yeah, and look at the midfield. Some guys can get away with a little bit of lack of pace, but, I mean, bringing that player on, I would assume that guy's got pace. So he brings him in, got pace, he's a bit fresher, bang, bang, game over. And speed is, look, on the flight from America back to Australia to start Acceleration Australia, we wanted our logo to be a running man, and we wanted the name to be Acceleration, because from 0 to 20 metres, or a little bit further sometimes, but 0 to 10, 0 to 20 metres is all the difference that you need in most sports. So
now in our programme, the Professional Player Pathway, we've got 7 pillars, and each pillar is to complement the athlete and the football player. And we're crossing over into other sports as well, which is exciting for us. But I think like yous are definitely one of them pillars, and I don't think people actually understand how important having some of these pillars are as an athlete. They think if you're a tennis player or a rugby league player, just getting coached by your coaches is enough to make it, and it's not, is it?
No, it's not at all. I think the reason being is it is a lot of work and it takes quite a long time. But I think the main thing, I take people through a journey. So with acceleration, it's performance training. So when I first came back to Australia, I was insistent that our name wasn't associated with strength and conditioning. It was associated with performance coaching. So people are coming to be trained performance training. It's not strength and conditioning, completely different thing. Yeah. You're not coming in to lift weights. You're coming to become a better athlete, period. So if that means that you're not lifting a weight in that workout to become a better athlete, that's what matters, Yeah. And realistically, when parents or of athletes or athletes that are adults or whatever, when they're coming in, they want to see a bump up in performance. And every training session, every training program that's designed has elements of training and development. And that training is about today. We want to get some immediate feedback going, hey, is this right? Is this making me quicker or is this making me better? And then there's a lot of training that's development. So some programs have a little bit of training and a lot of development. Some programs, more high-end athletes or whatever, have a lot more training for results today and less development because they're already older and that sort of thing. They don't need as much development, long-term development. But everyone needs some encouragement early so that they go, oh, I'm on the right path. This place is actually going to make me faster or whatever. But and the reality is it takes years. A great example of that is an AFL player that trained with us for 5 years. His name was Connor Budrick, and he trained with us on the Gold Coast. 5 years of training, fastest kid in the AFL draft, gets drafted super high by Gold Coast Suns and does really well. Was an okay athlete when he arrived, don't get me wrong, but he became, from an AFL point of view, world class for speed, and that got him a great draft position, and that set him up for his career potentially, So I think pace has a massive to do with that, but it's also the quality of movement. So we're not just talking about how fast someone gets, because that's something tangible that someone can hold on to going, oh, my 20 metres is a lot quicker, but it's also the quality of movement. Football players in particular, a lot of football players, because the ball's at their feet a lot as they're developing, sometimes they build some strange running styles. So we want that running form to be quality so that they're smooth, but also so they're injury free, so that when they're hitting their peak at 26, 27 or whatever, they're not doing a hamstring because they have poor running technique. You need them to move quality movement so that way they can have a long career.
When I was in the UK coaching back in the Premier League, and it was when I was at Leicester City, and they took a lot of sports scientists on from Loughborough University. And the head guy was originally from Australia, and his name's just gone. He's left me head. But he spoke about with the athletes being effective and efficient with you running. And he spoke about, when he said effectiveness, he said like your running technique's got to be perfect. He said, and if you're not putting practice and effort into it, you'll never be good at running. And it was quite interesting at the time, because a lot of people at the club were like, this is all nonsense. They're not runners. Well, they are runners, because if they've got to run 20 metres to try and win that ball or intercept that ball, that half a second difference is the difference in getting the ball or not. And it was funny enough that when the Triple P project went through the clubs, and then Leicester City took a huge focus on sports science, they took on 20 interns from Loughborough Uni. Wow. There's no surprise to me that 4 years later they won the Premier League.
Wow.
But what then blew me was that I heard from colleagues and ex-colleagues at the club, then they started to backtrack and remove some of those people from the club, and they then got relegated out the Premier League. And it's like, now they're back in the Premier League, and guess what? They're using youth turns again from Loughborough Uni. So it shows you the difference it can make. Now, I've spoke about it before. My eldest girl's a professional tennis player. She come to you at the age of 9 and 10 originally, which was over 5-6 years ago. She went through a spate of tennis training, acceleration training, and within that first 12 months of doing acceleration, she won Brisbane titles, she won state titles, and then at the age of 10, she went on and won the national title, the Rod Laver. Wow. And I know for a fact, if there was a lot of reasons why she won it, but if she wouldn't have done your program, she probably wouldn't have won it. She wouldn't have seen it through, because in her first round in the national titles, she got pitted against the number 1 seed, and she saw it off quite easily. But she played against the number 2 seed in the final, and I still remember the shot. It was at juice point.
Wow.
She had to go from the baseline to the edge of the net. At the end of the game, it was tied up a set all, and it was a 6-all in a tie break, a super tie break.
Wow.
And she sprinted for her life, and she got to that, and she fell flat on the floor. She got the ball just over the net, but there's no way she gets to that ball, and that was the difference. And that girl was deflated because she thought she had my daughter beat. And I still say to this day, that girl on the other side of the net technically is a better player at the time than my daughter.
Yeah.
But it was speed that got it over the line, and it shows you how important
it's
it is.
Huge. I think it was really prevalent in my mind when I was watching American football, to be honest. So I was working with American football, college football, and like my athletes were definitely the strongest, and we were manhandling these teams and stuff like that. And then I was seeing the pace of some of the other teams, and I was just like, this is driving me nuts. Like I can't really affect the game through strength anymore, because once you've kind of got that taken care of, you're creating holes in the line of defence, and then you need to bust that gap with a fast running back or whatever it was. American football is a very high athleticism sport. Like, it's crazy good to work with as a coach, and from my perspective. But speed was where it was at. And I was then watching basketball games. I was watching football, soccer, and I was great mates with Sean Holmes, the head coach of the football soccer in America team, and he was a Canadian guy and a fantastic coach and stuff. And I was just like, mate, we need to do more speed work. Like, this is crazy. I like the strength training and stuff, but realistically, your players really need the speed work, you know? And it makes such a difference. I had a bit of a reputation for it because I did it with baseball. And the baseball team at Bowling Green, when I was an assistant strength coach, had never done any speed work. No one had done speed work. And I was like, this is craziness. Baseball, mate. Why are you running a 3 kilometre, or it's like a 3 mile or a 1 mile fitness test or whatever? I was like, that has nothing to do with baseball whatsoever.
It's not relevant, eh?
Nah. So I just went out and bought sleds, did shoots and all this sort of stuff. And they won a championship for the first time in 25 years. So 1973 was the first one. 1998 was the next one, which was the year that I was a strength coach. They loved my work so much that I'd already flown to Des Moines, Iowa to start my new job. And they sent my ring in the mail, like a registered mail or whatever. It was this big knuckle buster, ugly ass ring, but it was the proudest thing I've ever owned, right? And it was purely, and they even wrote a note going, mate, this championship was due to your speed work and stuff. And I was like, mate, if I go back to Australia and start a company, it's got to be about speed.
Yeah.
And everything overlays that. I'm not discounting strength. It's just that the purpose of the strength training is to make the athlete faster.
Faster, yeah.
Faster movements, faster speed, faster whatever you want to say, but every exercise has to have an exact purpose. Why is it in there otherwise? Like, don't do it. Like, why are we doing barbell bench press? Like, what's the point of that if it's not being used in the game, right?
I remember being a young coach in my early 20s, and I was privy to it. I'd done it at school doing a beep test, and through the UK, the beep test was always this: you've done it once pre-season and maybe once at the end of the season. The idea was you tried to score higher at the end of the season to prove that your fitness went up during the year. But then when I really got into elite level coaching and actually discovered the purpose of the beep test was actually not to actually test your score pre and post season. It's actually to maintain during the year and to do it 2 to 3 times a week for overall fitness. But also we met with a guy from Sweden, and he come in and worked in with the Premier League. And his whole ethos was, if you're an athlete, you need to do the beep test 3 to 4 times a week. He said, if you do a sport like football, where running over 20 metres is very relevant, tennis, it's relevant, basketball, it's relevant. Now, but there was so many sports, the beep test is so effective. And his methodology was, it teaches acceleration from a standpoint and accelerating off, but also the biggest thing he was an advocate of was it teaches deceleration and putting your muscles and your joints and your bones under pressure and stress.
Yep.
And he said, if you constantly do the beep test 3-4 times a week, your body and your knees and your ankles are used to that strain. So then when you go into a game and it's competitive, you're not popping an ACL, you're not tearing a calf. Oh. And the research, I think it was about 30% when he done work with teams, and he just done this one simple thing. It was 3 beep tests minimum a week, with 4 ideally. And I think the injuries across the squad over the year reduced by 30%.
Kidding.
Just from doing a beep test. But also he would then make it really super relevant. So in football, He said, there's no good doing a beep test on a hard surface in runners. You need to be in your football boots, on a grass pitch. Oh, and also with a ball at your feet.
Oh, right. So he did the beep test with the ball.
With the ball, yeah.
That's not bad.
So these are the new ways we were coming out. And I've done it with football teams in the past, youth teams, senior teams. And you get a lot of fight back from players. But if you actually explain the reasons why you're doing the beep test and the benefits, then you'll get buy-in. And I think that's where one of the coaches go wrong. Now, I know your job at Acceleration goes way above and beyond a beep test. There's a lot more information, but it goes to show there's no excuses when you're a coach. Just to do something simple as a beep test a few times a week can make your team faster, stronger, decelerate better, and make them better overall.
I like that. It's a lot. I've done a lot of beep tests, either implemented them, used them for testing. You use testing for lots of different reasons, and one of the reasons is draw a line in the sand. Test, retest, see if someone gets fitter or whatever. But what I liked about that is very simple approach, and the exact reasons. That's the key. The exact point that you made was. What I like to say is that our coaches are specialists. So when we prescribe an exercise, that's no different from prescribing a drug as a doctor. So we're physicians. We're specifically specialists. And I used the word high performance manager. I would have been the first person in Australia to ever use it. I was a high performance manager of the Brisbane Bullets in probably 2003. I keyed the term, never even heard of it before, but that's what I used. And now the word high performance manager is used everywhere. Yeah. And the reason why is it has the word performance in there. It's really important to me. But I prescribed that because I had a lot of kickback from pro players and so forth. And because in college, it's no problem, especially in the 90s. Like they just do whatever the heck you tell them to do, right? Yeah. But then when you come working with grown men, they're professionals, they're like giving kickback, going, hey, Stewie, why are we doing this? Well, all right, I'm going to give you the reason for everything. Yeah. And when I say you're running, that means you need to run. I'm not punishing you. I'm saying you need this dose of fitness because that will prepare you for the game better. Yeah. So I'm not here to punish you. You're here. Every specific repetition is for a purpose. Now, if you mess up and miss a line, the purpose of this is I'm giving you an extra one because you didn't have the mental fortitude to touch that line. If one person misses a line, that means you're mentally weak. You're not going to touch that line. So when the head coach or the football coach or the basketball coach tells you to do something and you're fatigued in a game, you're just not going to touch that line when he asked you to touch that line. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you in a circumstance now that you need to touch that line. So apart from that particular circumstance, which I think is really good for preseason, building teamwork and getting players to sort of buy in and so forth and make sure they touch the lines. But aside from that, that's the aspect that you said where you need to give a reason for everything. Players will go to the end of the earth for you if they know why they're doing it.
Yeah. And that was one of the big mistakes I see, and I've spoken openly about it in 2010. I went back to Europe to finish off my coaching badges and to spend a few years back in Europe. And it stuck out like a sore thumb. We've got 92 professional football teams in England, and you think at every club the level's going to be super high, because I wasn't happy with the level in Australia. But it also amazed me when I went back to the UK and England, there was a lot of clubs who were doing all the right things, but there was a lot of clubs who were not doing the right things as well. And it made me realise that they didn't know how to explain to athletes and to the players why we're doing this. And I understood at a young age in my early 30s why it was so important to explain it to these adults that there's a reason why we're doing this, and that you get buy-in straight away. Yeah. And it was no surprise to me, all the successful coaches I worked in and around and the study visits I'd done, there was no surprise. Like I went and done a study visit down at Tottenham Hotspur, and they had a coach there called Harry Redknapp. Yeah. And it was no surprise to me why Tottenham Hotspur was struggling. Because I asked on the day of doing the study visit, I asked for a copy of the session plan. And him and his assistant coach just laughed at me and went, what session plan? And I'm like, yeah, can I have it? And you could see there was no plan, no thought, a lot of guesswork. And they were struggling big time at that point. But then when you go and work around, like I was very, very fortunate to do a study visit with Rafa Benitez at Liverpool, a coach called Brendan Rodgers. I work for Carlo Ancelotti, who's now the head coach at Real Madrid. There's no surprise why these guys are successful, because they plan everything to the single letter, but also their players understand why they're doing what and when and what time, and there's complete buy-in from all the players. And I just didn't see any issues with any of them squads because they knew why they were doing certain things each day.
I think some coaches they're just not that way wired. Like, I'm a very structured person, so because I'm structured and that's my personality, then developing programs in advance and everything has to be structured is really good. And then I build in, because I know I'm not a very flexible person, I'll build flexibility into my program if I know that's necessary. The issue is if the head honcho is not a very organised, structured person, he doesn't want that structure. The better coaches are the ones that recognise that. They know that about their personality, so they allow their assistant coaches or assistant managers or whatever you want to call it in football, they allow them to create the structure around, they'll impart their vision about what they want from the training sessions or what they want in the game, and then the assistant then goes away and builds the structure. So you'll see variety of personalities be successful at a high level, but it's either the head coach does the structure or the assistant has to do the structure. Somebody has to do the structure, because if there isn't any, they're not going to be in that industry for that long, unless they're just exceptional with people. And sometimes they are successful, and that's what throws people off, because they just have so much talent they can't lose, and they just manage talent well. So apart from that, generally you won't see them succeed.
Oh, brilliant. Well, guys, we're about to go to our first break. That first 20 minutes went so quick. Watch the ad breaks, guys. Get yourselves a drink, get a cup of tea, coffee, and we'll be back with you at the Raymond Wood podcast in the next couple of minutes.
Would you one day like to be a professional football player? Would you like to be part of our pro player pathway? What is the pro player pathway? It's an opportunity for all Australian football players aged between 10 and 23 who want to join us to become the next professional football player. On the pro player pathway, you get to join me and my team free of charge to an event all around Australia. When you join me, we're going to teach you the secrets of football in Europe. And one day, maybe, you could be gracing the Champions League final. Guys, over the next 12 months, we're going to be coming around all the major cities of Australia. And when we come around all the major cities, we're going to be running our free events everywhere we go. So guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's a free event. It's for boys and girls aged 10 to 23. And I'm going to teach you the secrets of becoming a top European football player. Oh, and one final thing. We're going to be giving away 20 scholarships to join me on this program of a lifetime.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood. We're back for part 2 of this podcast with Stuart Briggs. Now, Stuart, we were just talking a little bit about your background and a little bit about Acceleration Australia. And we got a little bit lost, but it was a good loss down a rabbit hole about coaches and expectations and getting players. Just to draw it back in a little bit, so for our listeners, so obviously I know this, but the listeners won't, but you're based in Brisbane in Australia.
Yes.
And the majority of your work is in Brisbane, so you work with athletes in Brisbane. So we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about how players can work with you externally from Brisbane as well. So talk to us a little bit about the different sports you work with. Is there a particular sport you work most with? And then also I want to talk to you about work with referees as well in a few minutes, but we'll pull it back into the athletes. So who is it you're working with? Which of the codes you're predominantly working with as a mix?
Yeah, good question. Because we're based at basketball stadiums, the reason being is it's an indoor facility in Australia that you can have a dry surface. It's lights and all that sort of stuff. We can control the environment a bit better. We have a lot of basketball players. And we've been really well known for that, because when I came back to Australia in the year 2000, I came from America, so basketball and America sort of hand in hand. So yeah, we built up a really good following in basketball, probably about 45% basketball players, around about 35% football players. So a lot of football. And actually, when Australia went to a phase where they didn't believe in doing anything without the ball at any training sessions, that actually increased the number of people that came to our centres, because they needed to get faster and they weren't getting it at the football clubs. So football's really, really big for us. Cricket is growing extensively. In the last 5 years, we didn't have many cricketers prior to that. Have had a lot of exposure to AFL, all the combative sports, AFL, rugby union, rugby league. And then we've had a really big following in swimming. We've had a lot of success, gold medal champion, gold medal Olympians in swimming and so forth. So because swimming and rowing and sports that are very high force production type sports really suit strength conditioning coaches or performance training, because if we make them stronger, they swim faster.
Yeah.
And if we do it well, then, I train a Singaporean swimmer to this day. He's a Paralympian, Wei Sung, and I've been training him for about 5 or 6 years now, and I do it online and that sort of stuff. So we still have swimmers and we do have online athletes, but yeah, face-to-face, that's the sort of breakdown. And then pretty much every sport. We've even had parkour athletes, circus athletes, that sort of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I know, especially in football in the 80s and 90s, it was very old school style coaching. There was a lot of running. Like you go into pre-season, they'd be going on like 5K runs, 10K runs. And we discovered in the UK and England through the big project I worked on that there wasn't enough touches of the ball. And I found that then we went really the opposite. We went really heavy with the amount of touches on the ball, and all the other stuff started to get forgotten about. But I think it's interesting. I think it's drawn into a good balance now. We're in 2024. We're seeing that people understand that. I think it's the 80-20 rule. You need 80% of your time where you're learning all the technical stuff, you're touching the ball. That's so important to your game. But that 20% is so important as well. That 2 to 3 hours a week working on things like speed, acceleration. When we talk about your programs you run in Brisbane, but if someone wants to work with Acceleration Australia, whether it be in the US or the UK, do you guys have any like online platforms, online programs? How does that work?
Great question. So I'm from country Queensland. So I'm from about 5.5 hours drive from here on a cattle property. I went to boarding school in Rockhampton. And so when I went to university in Lismore, New South Wales, I went on exchange to the US. And all that time, I went to America to learn from the Americans. So about things that they did with athletes to come back to Australia. And the whole time my vision was to start Acceleration Australia. I didn't know the name of it back in those days, but I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to work with athletes from the base of the pyramid all the way to the top. And one of those things I wanted to do was help country people. So I developed an online program that I started building about 22 years ago. I was the first one in the world to build it on the cloud. We've got over 2,000 exercises, all videoed and everything else. And we've written probably over 500,000 online programs in the last 16 years. We went completely, all of our sessions are run on iPads and everything at our centres, so we went completely paperless at least 12 years ago. And the purpose behind that is collecting a lot of data, and then also prescription, making sure it's very precise, and so everyone knows what's going on. The athlete can see the videos, the coaches know which exercise they are and everything else. So online is where we live, and that's we've been building that for a long time. So we've been able to build very detailed programs. So we can build a very detailed program for someone in England, the same as what they'd get in Australia. And they can see the detail, they can see the drill, and they can incorporate the drill.
Fantastic.
But with tech these days, it's getting even better, mate. The way in which we can get feedback from the athlete and everything is improving by literally every 2 weeks from what I know in AI. AI is literally changing every 2 weeks. So we'll be able to really improve. Our online training is great, but it's just going to get better by every 2 weeks.
So let's say you're an athlete and you live in a remote part of, say, the USA, and you want to be part of Acceleration Australia. What do the costs look like for an online program with Acceleration? Is it like $100 a month? Is it $1,000 a month? What would a basic online program look like?
Yeah, so for a customized program, it's around about $140 Australian. So I suppose about $100 US. Yeah,
a month.
Yes,
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So just a little over $1,000 a year. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because that's one of the things that we've been speaking about off air, and we're hopefully going to integrate. And for all of our listeners and current Pro Player Pathway players, we are going to probably add in an 8th pillar, which will be Acceleration Australia.
Amazing.
We're super excited to get you guys involved. It's just going to add again another flavour and an extra pillar for our players to be even more successful.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about with our players, we've got a lot of the stats and data from the UK and Europe. And let's say, as an example, one of the key things we work on is technical advancements. And in Europe and the UK, the players train to get to 80% or above as a top goal. And that means if they get 80% or above, that target's hit. What we do on our program, we've decided to set it to 85% or above. So we know when we send our players across, whether our players are in Australia or the USA, we know when they go to the UK and Europe for trials, they've got a better chance of making it because they're just slightly above the European kids. So again, to be able to add in something like Acceleration Australia, and as I said, I've seen it firsthand with my daughter, the changes it makes, being able to be half a yard quicker. In football, we talk about being half a yard quicker there, but I also think it all interlinks, and I think being half a yard quicker physically, it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's great. I'm actually interviewing a gentleman this afternoon. His name's Aaron Whitefield, and he's a baseball player, been in Major League Baseball, and he's in minor leagues right now, but should get back into major leagues. He hasn't trained with us for 4 years, and he said he's been training in America for 4 years, and he came back and he just told me yesterday, he's like, Stu, like, you guys are way ahead of every American program that I've been in for the last 4 years. And the reason why I know that is I go back to America every couple of years and check out centres, and we converse with UK-based companies as well. So we know what's going on all the time, particularly in the area of speed. And the gains he's had is remarkable. It's on his work as well, but very much he really praised our coaches, but our programming, and it really reinforced to me how important it is. And America, Australia, UK, anything, we are top class. Like, I'm not talking Australian class, I'm talking world class, and we built it that way. And it's sometimes it just takes takes 20 years to become famous, and it takes 20 years to get there. Yeah, it takes a long time.
It's like with anything. We were speaking about this to a few ex-colleagues on a Zoom call a few nights ago, and it was like 1 a.m. in the morning. And it was funny, we're all of a similar age, and we're now saying that we thought when we were in our 20s we were good coaches, and we thought we were amazing when we were 30, but it's when you get into your 40s and 50s you realise, now I've actually starting to get there, but I still haven't arrived. But you just realise that you are constantly learning and evolving. But I think it's once you've got 20, 25 years under your belt, you feel really confident and you know what you're talking about. And one of the things I've discovered over the past year or two, with all due respect, is that you speak to a lot of younger people or people who've been in certain codes. It actually blows my mind. They don't know a lot. They don't know a lot. And it's like, I've got people coming out to me, reaching out to me from the swimming world. I've got people reaching out to me from netball, from basketball, saying that your methodologies and what you're implying in Pro Player Pathway, would love to learn more for these different sports and codes. And I think it's a testament as well to athletes out there that you're not going to turn into a pro overnight. It's hard work. It's going to take you 10, 12 years to get there. And when you think you've arrived, you haven't arrived. You've still got another 10, 15 years of a career ahead of you. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big things we're looking at. Now, talking about refs, now, it was really interesting. They really changed the game of football in 2010-11 in the UK and in the Premier League and La Liga in Spain. But there was a problem that was created. As these athletes got fitter, faster, stronger and got better, we realised the referees were struggling.
Yes.
And a lot of the referees were overweight, they couldn't keep up. And then they started to realise that, oh, damn, we're making a lot of mistakes. The refs are missing a lot in the game. We need to actually get them fitter, faster, stronger. And it was so interesting that you said to me, oh, yeah, like one of our biggest training programs we have is the referees. So can you tell us which referees you work with, what sport it is, what code it is, and do they do the same program as the athletes, or is it slightly tailored different?
Yeah, quite really good question. In football, we've been actually quite famous. So Chris Beath is one of our most storied referees in Australia, and he went to the World Cup, in fact, and he was an athlete of ours for over a decade. Yeah. And he would literally fly back from Canberra and train with us, and we've done so much training with Chris Beath. There were also some assistant referees that Nathan's last name escapes me at this moment. He just retired the other day, actually. It was his last game. I wish I knew that. But we went through the whole analysis of the assistant referees in particular, because speed is so important for them to get the offside correct, and they have to react, and they're starting from a side start position. All this sort of stuff. It's about vision and sprinting as well. So refereeing is quite different. I really got stuck into the basketball side of things. So we're in with Scott Butler's the head of referees for the NBL, and we've been with him for about 6 years, and we've been going through this evolution where we've been bolting on new services or whatever. So now they come in, all 25 referees from around Australia fly into Brisbane once a year to get tested by our coaches. They do a full dietary analysis and get a full diet and everything, and they also get physio. And from all that, then we've built a program that they do year round for the rest of the year, and it's to the stage where in the early parts of the season, the commentators were going, "Holy smokes! Look at that referee. He looks jacked. Like the referees look amazing." Then we've been doing quite a bit of speed work in the last year or so. So we started changing the look of them a few years ago, but now they're eating much better, even better now with the dietitians. And now they're getting faster. So now line of sight, they're not guessing anymore, which was the issue.
Keeping up with the play.
Yeah, they're keeping up with the play. You imagine as a referee in the NBA, you're playing against LeBron James or some other guy is just flying. You know, you got to get right angle, and if you don't get the call right, you're in trouble, mate. Like you're getting assessed all the time. Those
not going to be reffing any more games.
No, and the fitness of guys like a Chris Beath in the middle there is crazy, but they've got to also have pace, you know, and so, but they've got to make decisions, like lots and lots of decisions on the fly. So, yeah, I'm really proud of our referee. In fact, I think 3 of our referees have all been athletes of the year at Acceleration since 2007. We've been doing Athlete of the Year since 2007, so I haven't done it for 20 years yet. And 3 out of the 16 years or whatever have been football referees. Jackie Melksham, who's now goes by a different last name, but Jackie was in a referee for the Women's World Cup in Germany, and we've actually got an aerial photograph from a blimp or whatever of her, and you can see the yellow speck. She sent it to us, a framed photograph of her game in Germany. Amazing. And then Jackie Melksham, Chris Beath, and the third is Rebecca Durkow, I think is her name, and she's a football referee as well. So 3 football referees.
Wow.
Football refereeing is super important. Yeah. The game doesn't evolve if the referees don't evolve.
Yeah, it's fast. I can remember in the 90s and watching English football, and it was always your stereotypical small, overweight, baldy guy in his 50s, 60s, and you think, wow, and you see it now. But I remember in the 90s, I think at the time, the Serie A was the biggest football league at the time, which was the Italian league. And their referees were like slim, fit, strong. And I think a lot of it was down to like diet and stuff and that and the lifestyle. But I remember it was Pierre Chiellini, I think his name was. And he was like the top referee at the time. And he's now the head of the referees for FIFA. Oh. And it's now to see where it's gone now with referees and linesmen. And even though we've got VAR in football now, like we've seen it this morning, the refs have got to keep up, and it's like it's super, super important. But it's funny now to think like 20 years ago, if you would have said refs and linesmen are going to be considered as athletes as well, you'd be like, nah, no way, they're not going to be athletes. Well, they have to be. If they want to keep up with athletes, they've got to be. Brilliant, mate. Well, we're going to go to our final ad break. So a big thank you for everyone who's listening. Go and get yourselves a drink if you need a quick toilet break, and we'll be back with you for the final part with me and Stuart on the Raymond Wood podcast.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and then give you your results, physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024. And also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback. And maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, it's Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. We're here for our final section with Stuart Briggs. Now, Stu, we were just talking a little bit about referees and how that's evolved and they probably consider that, well, they are athletes now as well because they've got to keep up with the game. Moving on with Acceleration Australia and for yourself, what's the rest of the year look like? Obviously, we spoke about you coming in and being one of our pillars for our programme, but also, is there any plans overseas and anything like what's going on?
What's happening in acceleration is we're going heavy into AI. We've been going that way for a few years, but what that means is we're incorporating an Australian company called ViewMotion, and basically it allows athletes from anywhere in the world basically to videotape their run, either 10 metres or 20 metres, and it breaks down the analysis of the run. From that run, that information then goes into our software, and we're able to create a program based off that analysis.
Wow.
And it's just game changer. It literally will tell you the speed of your first step. So if you want to know your first step quickness, then you'll actually be able to find out.
It's funny that because we talk about like if you can discover what someone's complaints or problems are and you can fix a complaint for them, it's a winner. Now, one of the big complaints we always used to get was, but you're only in Brisbane. When can you come to Rockhampton? When can you come to Perth? When can you come to Toronto? I think something like that's phenomenal. Like the fact that someone could record, they could live in Canada, they could record themselves, send a video to you, and you can build them a program based off that and give them all your expertise across the internet without actually physically having to see them.
Yeah, I think actually the key is, because I've got so many staff that actually are building quite a lot of base of experience, they need to have quite a bit of experience of face-to-face coaching so that way they can be a great mentor online. Yeah. So being able to mentor someone through their workout, assess them, someone's watching them, someone's helping them, and I think that's key. That's what I'm going to be folding over. That's my major focus for this year. It's been my focus for 20-something years, but this, in terms of building all the pillars to be able to make that happen, like jumping on your pillars thing. But look, the long story short is I want to make a difference. That's why I built Acceleration. I started Acceleration. I wanted to help at least 1 million athletes before I retire, and I'm 50, so I got some work to do. Yeah.
It's funny, like I've just been on a retreat to Bali, and I met some of the most amazing people on that retreat in Bali, but it was all around discovering your purpose. And if you didn't have your purpose or not quite know what your purpose was, and after walking away, I always knew what my purpose was. I've always been driven to help athletes. I was never good enough at 16, 17 to make it as a professional football player. That would have been my dream. And that's what I don't want is kids to get to 16 and 17 and actually not realise that if their mum and dad had the right information when they were 9, 10, 11 and 12, they could have turned into a professional athlete and a professional football player. So that's my purpose, is to get like yourself to as many people as possible and to help as many people. And we're working on many projects over the next couple of years. But it's good when you lead with that purpose, because you see there's a lot of people who do lead with a really good purpose, and they're the ones, there's no surprises, are super successful in life as well.
Look, I'm really big on empowering people. I want to help people. I want to help the parents. I want to help the parents. They're the first high-performance manager of their children before they ever become an elite athlete. People talk about it all the time. You've got to be that person before you're that person. Yeah. So if you want to be a professional athlete, you need to have the mindset of a professional athlete before you become a professional athlete. And for the parents, like, they need the tools. And so what I want to be is a resource to be able to help those parents. I love being able to help my young coaches and some of them as they go through their career, mentor them. I mentor my coaches even after they leave Acceleration, and they look back at me and so forth and they go, wow, I learnt so much from that, Stu, that was so good, all that sort of stuff. So even if it's not within Acceleration, I just want to be able to help people. It's really, really important to me. And why else do you do it?
Yeah. Why else are we here? Yeah. It's a good feeling. That's one of the big things I think that goes missed, is that parents you've just hit the nail on the head. They're the most important people in a child's life, because if they've got the knowledge and the education and to help them in those first couple of steps, and that's one of the reasons why we put our 7 pillars together. Why should you have to wait until you're 14 or 15 to learn this stuff and start doing it? Because you're already starting from behind the start line, and everyone's got a head start on you, especially the athletes who are already in the system. And that's the reason why we built the Professional Player Pathway. It's the reason why I've wrote the autobiography, The Professional Player Pathway, because I want to share that message with everyone, that you can get started the way I done with my daughter. I'm not a tennis coach. I've got no tennis background. I never played tennis, but she's 15 years of age playing pro tennis globally. And that's because I knew these methodologies. I had the absolute belief that knowing these 6 or 7 pillars would help her. And it even more so helps in my area, which is football, because that's my game. That's the game I've lived and breathed my whole life. 44 years I've learned football inside out. And it's scary to think that I get so excited and I get upset as well. I'll have a tear or two, because it's like, I know if someone comes on our programme and follows it to the letter, or reads my book and follows it to the letter, their chances of their child making it as an athlete increases by 1,000%.
Yep.
And some people don't want to believe it, but it's that simple. Just follow it and follow the pathway.
It sounds simple, but you've got to be able to do it, right?
Yeah, it's the hard work and the consistency.
And that's why I think it's important to be in programs like yours, because it's not easy to stick to it. I think you need to have a mentor. You need to have these people
accountable.
In place. You need to be accountable. And it just gives you, I had a massive chat to a parent last night. Both the children played basketball. One of them, they were just nowhere near and they could hardly run and chew gum at the same time, she said to me. And then basically they're making state programs and so forth right now. Yeah. And she goes, I'm absolutely blown away by the results. And I said, yeah, that's great, but that's just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. It's just the start.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot of work with the AI and you're starting to, is that integrated or is it still being built as we speak? Or?
Yeah, so it basically what we're looking to do is they'll initially sit outside of Accelerware, the software, and then we build it in. So we use bridges like APIs or we'll actually incorporate it in. And the main concept is just getting as much feedback as possible all the time. And feedback and accountability, and because we know our program works. That's all we're going to do is just make sure the person does it and they can ask questions and so forth and get that done. If they do the workouts, it works. We know that. It's been proven. So
it's funny you say that, and it's a really important one I want to finish on for both of us, that you've got to do the work and you've got to follow through. And we've said that. So I've had a parent contact us in the office a few weeks ago and he's like, we've been on the program for 3 months. And I'm like, okay, so just remember, it's a 4-year program. It's going to take a few years to see big gains and successes. But anyway, and he said, but I just don't know what we're paying for. This is rubbish. And I'm like, okay, well, let's have a look. So we go on the online system. We've given them the secret recipe to bake the cake. All the tutorials are on there, all the videos are on there, all the contact points. There's monthly Zoom meetings. We've done the intolerance testing, the nutrition, DNA testing. We've done the match analysis. We've built the objectives for them to follow. We go on the system and they haven't done one objective on the system. And we're like, so guys, so this is the problem. You're not doing your objective, but you haven't shown us how to do it. I said, we have, it's on your app. And we've told you if you're struggling to use the app, call us and we'll help you, guide you on the app how to do it. By the end of the call, we then get the apology, and it's like, and I think people just assume, and unfortunately, I don't think it's that particular parent's fault. I think it's the decade or the year we're in at the moment where everyone wants everything fast and quick. Mm-hmm. They want to jump on Uber Eats and get food delivered in 10 minutes. They want to get an Uber to the door. I think they expect by paying a set amount of money, something's going to happen and it's going to be done overnight for them. I think there's a realization that you can have the secret recipe, but if you're not going to put the ingredients in and you're not going to work at it and bake that cake, it's not going to turn into a cake. And that's what I'm trying to say to parents, is that like you need to understand. I think unfortunately the generation we're in, they expect everything to be done for them, and I think that's even embedded in some of the parents out there.
I think the main thing is what I'd like to say to people is it's actually good that it's hard.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to go through the hard and put the time in, that means you're going to beat out 99% of the people.
Yeah.
And there are some people, and football's a big example of that. We have a lot of football players that are coming in at 8, 9 or 10 years of age because the parents know their child needs to get faster and their kid runs funny or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're starting early, which means that they're building in good habits with their running. And even if they only train with us for a short period of time and then go away, they're going to hold that running form, and that child will run well for the rest of their lives, unless they have an injury or something weird happens. But yeah, that essentially, some people are understanding this is a long journey and we're going to start early, you know. And this isn't overtraining. This is like once a week for half an hour. You know, they're working on running form or something. Yeah. But some people do get it, and I think you'll get more and more of that. I actually think it'll go the other way. I think some people will expect things to be quick, and I think if we build a culture where, hey, this is a long play, you got to follow this through, and we want it to be hard. I like that in life. I was like, oh, this is hard. Oh, that means not everyone's going to be able to do this. I'm going to do something hard. That means it's, you know, not going to be common.
I said that, and I said that to my daughter, and it was hard for her at the time. She was 9 and 10.
Yep.
And I said, especially in females in sports, I said, if you're still playing tennis competitively at 16, 17, I said, you will make it as a professional tennis player, because the amount of drop-off, the amount of people who won't put the effort in, won't put the work in. A lot of people, unfortunately, I believe, just live in fear. They don't want to go outside the boundaries, and that's what we're trying to do. It's that cultural change trying to advise people that, look, guys, if you just follow it and stick to it, I know it seems a lot thinking of a 4 or a 5 year plan, but just do one day at a time. And there's always going to be challenges. And a quick example, we were in Wollongong at the weekend. We done an event. We done free objective testing. The event cost us nearly 20k to put on. Wow. We covered it. We done an event inside for 2.5 hours, cost us nearly 50 grand, right? And we're teaching them the secrets of the Premier League, the secrets of football, the secrets how to develop your player. I've then give like pretty much a day of my time dealing and speaking with all these parents and educating them, upskilling them. Now, the biggest complaints they give me was that the FFA, everything costs too much money, there's no clear pathway, and they just feel like they feel let down by the system. So we've gone in and done 2 free events for them, saving them money, so they're not having to pay anything. We've taught them the pathway, we've shown them the pathway, and we've educated them the pathway. I've got one dad complaining to me because he can't get any time with me, and I'm like, you've just had me all day. I said, how many notes? We give everyone a pen and pad at our cost. How many notes have you took? He hadn't took any notes on his pad. Then he sent an email into the office to say how good it was getting all this stuff for free. But then he was highly disappointed he didn't get to spend more time at the end of the day. And he thinks it's something we need to fix. And I'm like, wow. Are you actually missing the whole point of what we've just done for you? And that, again, that's that cultural change. Like, people don't realise what they're saying. And when you give them the fix, some of them still don't even want to see it, what you've given to them. And I think there's some people you're not going to convince and you're not going to win over. But I think the message I want to finish on for that is for me and you and our athletes who we work with, is that trust in us. If you follow the system and see it through, you will be super successful in anything you do in life, whether it's sports, whether it's outside the sports. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. That's why I love Acceleration. That's what we've been able to do for people, regardless of whether they become a professional athlete or they become an Olympian or they just make their local team. They just want to hit their goals or whatever. But it's just, this is what I talked to the mother about. I said, I've had girls where they've torn their ACL or whatever before they came to Acceleration. They're coming in and I go, what, you know, there's purpose behind things. You know, you need to get through this. This isn't the worst thing that's going to happen to you for all your life. So, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to give up or are you going to work hard? And this is a lifetime lesson. Same thing with lifting weights or running or anything. It's a project. It's something, the professional pathway for yourself, whatever, that is a fantastic program. And if they can follow that program and go through it, they're going to be successful regardless of what the end result 100%. Is. Because once they've been through that whole process, anything in life, they're going to go, mate, I've been through that, I can do that. Yeah. You know, I can become an engineer, I can become a doctor, I can do whatever I want to do because I know what it's like to go through a program. Yeah. And same thing with Acceleration. People train with us for years. It's super common that people come away, they're fit, they're strong, they stay fit and strong. You know, like I'm not seeing them years later where they're overweight or unhappy or whatever. A lot of them become very successful in their own right, and it's fantastic. And I think that's the way going forward at all times. It's like, what are we doing here? This isn't just, we are trying to specifically nail a specific goal, and it's very likely that's going to occur. But in the end of it, even if you do get that, that's great. What's next? You know, it's a lifetime thing. You know,
it's forming good habits, isn't it? I speak to the parents in the room quite open. I've met David Goggins before. Oh, have you? And I'm good friends with David, so and I'm going on tour with him in November. Wow! And I said, like, he taught me the lesson that anything's possible. Like, I went from being 135 kilos, not fit, to all of a sudden in 2021, I think it was after I met him, I'm running 10K a week after listening to his audiobook. Before I'd even met him, but just listening to his audiobook. Then I'm running 40K a week. Then I'm running 80K a week. Then I'm running 90K a week training. Then I'm doing half marathons. Then I'm doing marathons. Oh. And then I do ultra marathons. And I run a 65K. And I literally stop for a pee once in, I think it was like 6-7 hours it took me to do the 65K. And the message I get to parents is like, you need to put yourself through these hard challenges because you understand what your kids go through, but also it sets you up for life. Yep. Like, just from going through that running journey with David Goggins on an audiobook, and I probably listened to the audiobook 100 times over when I was running, but the lessons and the messages, when you constantly put them through your brain, you're just going to be so much more successful in life. And I'm not just talking financially, I'm talking health, wealth, friendships, community, helping people.
Everything, man.
And it's like, as a parent, and I say to my parents in the room when we run our free events, get out running. It's the best thing you can do. You're going to benefit, your kids are going to benefit, and everyone benefits. And when we leave this planet, we leave it in a slightly better place than when we first come in. I think that's a good place to be.
Mate, I love it. I just love being around high-performing people. I love positivity, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I love making a difference to athletes, making a difference to coaches' careers and so forth. Being around positive, moving forward people that have these different experiences, that you're different to me. You know, I love that. I love people being different from me, and I love learning from different people. And I think that's what people should be seeking. They want people that are open-minded, that are seeking this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's what everyone should want. And I suppose if they don't want to do it, then they don't have to do it.
They don't have to do it. No. Stuart, we could go on for another 4 hours, I think, but we're going to have to leave it there. Yeah. But we will try and revisit this maybe in 12 months' time to see where you're at. Hopefully, we've fully integrated acceleration into one of our new pillars. Yeah, cool. We're excited to do that. So a big thank you from me at the Rainwood Podcast, and thank you to Stuart for joining us. Now, our next 2 podcasts we're going to do, I'm super excited because it's that time of year. We've worked out and we've discovered it's Borussia Dortmund versus Real Madrid at Wembley on the 1st of June. We're going to be doing a lot of content and a lot of videos for all our listeners over that week, that period. We're going to be in Liverpool, Manchester, then down in London, and we're going to be coming live from the biggest game of football on the planet. Now, I always get thrown at me, no, the World Cup final's the biggest game in world football. I'm like, it's not. The Champions League final has twice as many followers and it's watched on TV by twice as many people than a World Cup final. Wow. So for me, the Champions League final is the biggest game in world football. We're super excited. For everyone that knows, I did used to work for Carlo Ancelotti at PSG. I'm excited to see Real Madrid there again. I would have liked to have seen Liverpool there, but they weren't even in the Champions League this year. I'm super excited for one of the athletes that not only I was a pleasure in meeting and working a little bit with, and my good colleague did, but Jude Bellingham. He's 20 years of age. He's probably the biggest player on the planet. He come through the project that I worked on, and he's probably, hopefully, he's going to be one of the youngest players ever to win the Champions League final at the age of 20. And that is a testament, not because he was born talented, because he followed a programme. He followed the pathway that we set for him, and he's now one of the biggest and greatest players. So we're super excited. We'll see you live from the Champions League final. And a big thank you from me. Namaste and peace.